Hello, thank you so much for joining me once again. Today I have a face-up video of my Minifee Rena. I did end up naming her Raven because I thought it was funny. My sense of humor. Anyway, if you ever thought that my projects always turn out perfect, this will prove otherwise. However, it turned out good enough for me. This is not something quality-wise that I would send to anybody who commissioned me for a face-up or anything like that. You'll see why going forward. However, I kind of like her anyway, and I don't want to redo her, so that's where we're at. Without further ado, here we go. My first step was deciding on a color that was just slightly darker than her base skin tone. She is actually a tan doll. Don't let the lighting in this shot fool you. But yeah, I picked a color that was just slightly darker. The way I do it is I scribble the chalk pastel onto some sandpaper and then I dip my brush in that. I have this very zoomed in. I wanted to actually show you what I was doing this time around so you can't see that aspect, but after that I just go in and I start blushing the lower parts of the face, the parts that would be in shadow normally, to try and give her a little bit of dimension. After that, I went in and added a tiny bit of blushing in a sort of rosy pinkish color right underneath her eyes, a little bit higher on her cheek. I just kind of wanted that look this time around. And I go ahead and blend that nice and good. And I follow all that up with even more of the darker sort of skin tone blending, trying to add shadows where I can and just getting as much of that not only to stick but also to like blend out so it's nice and smooth looking as I could. With the shadows and stuff done up as far as they'll go on this layer, I go in with a watercolor pencil in black because I knew since I first saw this doll that she was gonna have black lips. So I figured I would try to color it in with the colored pencil, and then I put some chalk pastel over it to kind of blend and try to solidify the color, because the the watercolor pencils sort of have a texture to them where no matter how much you fill them in, they don't always end up looking completely solid. So I ended up trying the chalk pastel over top, and after a couple of layers it made it really nice and solid, you'll see. So I definitely think that was a good plan. The super dark chalk pastel definitely left some streaks though, so I had to go in with a kneaded eraser and try to scrub those off without affecting the blush that I still hadn't sealed. So that was exciting and probably mistake number one. Because using the kneaded eraser kind of killed my blushing layer, and I don't know if you've ever done it, when you erase something that's been blended out, you get a sharp line. So I went back in with my blush color and just added that back in and gave it a good rubbing so that it would blend out the way I need it to. So having learned my lesson, after I sealed it a second time, I went in and started with the dark colors first, figuring I could clean those off and then add the blush layer next. So that's what I'm doing here, using the pencil first and then going in with the black chalk pastels. Once I've got the lips to as dark as I think I'll be able to get them this layer, I go in with more of my rosy blush color and more of the sort of shadowy skin tone color, just to try and add a little bit more depth. And here you can see progress so far. This is 2 layers. Definitely got some work to do on the lips and haven't even really started the eyes yet. So I hop back in with the black watercolor pencil and start adding the eyelashes in the shape that I had planned. And apologies, because apparently this isn't very easy to see, despite my camera being in front of my face. My respect for people who record really close-up things is just through the roof. I already thought, like, wow, that looks like it's probably a pain in the butt, but now that I've tried it a few times, my goodness, there is no winning. So I'm doing my best. Hopefully we'll keep improving here. And here you get a little close-up of our progress so far. You can see the blacks are not fully black. The basic shapes are in, but there's still a little bit of muddiness around the edges. And you can see the texture that the pencils have. I like the texture. I don't really mind it. Some people really hate it. So it's definitely something to consider while going forward if you plan to get into face-ups and stuff. Now that I can't put them off any longer, I decided to go in and try to start blocking out the eyebrows. I used a brown watercolor pencil for this, figuring it would be easier to erase and sort of reshape things to something I wanted if I didn't like the first go through. And with this doll, I did tell myself that I wasn't allowed to not paint the eyelashes and the eyebrows. I am tragic with paints. No joke, while working on this doll, I ended up getting paint all over my elbows somehow. Something about my particular brand of clumsiness, and it just doesn't really go great together, and you'll see more going forward. There's a reason that I tend to stick with the watercolor pencils up until now, but I won't learn unless I do it, so that's where we're at with this project. I did spend a really long time trying to convince myself that other things needed to be done before I could possibly think of using the paint. So I did go in and I made all the dark black stuff darker and blacker, and I added some red to the inner eyelid and some highlights. that I had been planning on putting on there, and I darkened up the eyebrows with the pencil again because apparently that needed doing. This is mostly procrastination at this point. The time has come. I can't put it off any longer. I told myself that with this doll, I wanted her to have the nice, delicate eyelashes that I see so many people painting, and I've gotten advice from friends, which thank you guys. I've gotten, I've watched videos on other people doing it and seen their amazing results, and I've convinced myself I can do this. And then it all goes downhill. This isn't to be discouraging. I did end up liking the results okay, but no, it's not, it's clunky, it's bad, it's not great. But that's okay. Like I said, this is how you learn, so I'm gonna take what I learned from this doll and the next one, hopefully apply it, and maybe get closer to those, delicate, beautiful results that I was hoping for. I do know one thing that I need to be better about is having like something damp, like either a damp paper towel or a Q-tip or just something on hand where I can quickly erase mistakes, because I was waiting too long and panicking and I wasn't getting my stuff erased in time, and that was a big problem, especially with the brows. The brows are a bit of a hot mess. I've decided that this character just doesn't, do a lot of brow grooming, and that's totally valid because neither do I. So we're just accepting her the way she is. So I went in, I think maybe one last time with the watercolor pencils to sort of cover up my horrible painting mistakes and also make a few of my highlights pop. And that was considerably easier than the paint part. Lastly, I knew I did really want to make the lips super shiny, and I tried super hard to add the gloss on camera and then immediately panicked and took it off camera because this part was really delicate and I'm historically quite bad at it, so I did that off camera, sorry. I also decided that it was time to add the shimmer over the eyelids. I might have gone a little too far on the shimmer. I did use the Pearl X powders and I mixed it in with my gloss to make it nice and glossy, which I don't regret that, but I think I used too much of the Pearl X powders because it ended up going on like white paint, and it was a little bit of a disaster at the last minute. It definitely doesn't look super crisp like I was hoping it would, but it did give the effect that I wanted, and I decided that instead of trying to wreck everything else while fixing it, I was going to be happy with it. Another thing that was happening with this whole face up was my can of MSC, Mr. Super Clear, was acting really strange. Like, pushing the button down was almost impossible, and despite trying to clean the nozzle and do everything, it was spitting, which meant that it was, instead of making the nice fine droplets that it's supposed to, it was blorping big droplets on. So her final face up does have a couple of slightly discolored spots from that, and again, this is one of those things that, while I would never send something like this out to somebody who commissioned me for a face up or something like that, when I saw it, I immediately thought of my own face and some of the marks that are just kind of permanent additions to the texture of my face, and I went, oh. So she's gonna stay this way for a while, and I refuse to feel bad about it. But yeah, I really like this doll. I like how she turned out, and I really love the vibe that she gives. So I hope you enjoyed this. If you didn't learn anything, hopefully you at least had a good time. And if you want to see more videos like this, please like and subscribe. And I do hope you have a great day. Bye.